and welcome to the Watching Books podcast, where we discuss books that have only been adapted to both stage and screen. I'm Victoria.
Laura.
Hi,
Welcome.
Mom.
Hi, Victoria.
How are you tonight?
Doing fantastically. Feeling much better. How are you?
I'm doing splendiferously.
Wonderful.
I'm glad you're feeling much better. Sorry about that. I'm the reason you weren't feeling so good. So, to
No,
catch
I
people
won't
up,
blame it on you. You didn't start it.
it wasn't my fault. I mentioned in our last episode that my son was going to be having a surgery, and that's one of the reasons why we missed a week of posting our podcast and why we ended up posting The Wizard of Oz and then The Wiz just a few days apart. Because we were in the hospital for several days with my son, my little baby, who had a very intense surgery, a very good one, very necessary one. And I'm not going to go into his medical details, but we had a wonderful experience. The hospital staff was amazing. Everything went wonderfully. He's doing beautifully. But we brought home a GI virus from the hospital, and it has run through every member of our family, including you, because you were home watching my other two children, and you took it home with you, and I'm so sorry.
But your
my
dad,
father, I don't know how he didn't get it. How did he survive?
man, what a constitution. I bet he would go, I've deployed.
True. He has a gut
He's
of
had so
iron.
many shots. He probably has some sort of shot that prevented him from getting it.
That's what he told me. He was like, I've had to have so many vaccines. That's the only reason why I wouldn't get it. So if you need a case for vaccinating, there you go.
Oh my gracious. Wow. Yeah. He didn't get it.
I mean, good for him. It feels kind of silly to ask, but are you reading anything new?
Well, yes, I'm actually reading something new. It's for a future episode, and it is new to me. I've never read it before, and so it's exciting to read. I'm enjoying it, and I really can't wait to talk about it. So we'll get there in December.
I'm intrigued. Okay. Well, I too am reading something that is only for December that our listeners will hear about later, but it's for the podcast, so I don't want to share it yet. And I read it once in
I
high
know.
school, and revisiting it has just okay, I should probably save it for the podcast, but I read it so differently now as a mom than I did as a teenager. It's a completely different experience. And I have cried
Okay.
multiple times.
So when we were talking about this book, and I've read it before, and of course now I have now reread it, and you mentioned how much you just did not like that book, and I thought, how
Mhm.
can you not like this book? And I'm reading it going, how could she not like this book? How could she not like this? It warms my heart to hear you say
Yeah.
that you're reading
Yes.
it very differently now.
Yes. Yes. And especially as a mom. And
Yeah.
as a teen, I don't know, Mom. It's not like I would have shied away from this book. I found it very boring. I remember skipping parts of it because I was bored. I don't know why. Because I'm reading it now going, why did I find this boring? That's not like me. It must have been whatever time period it was for me. It must have been just like that stage of my life. I don't know.
Yep.
So we'll see if our listeners can possibly guess what book we're talking about.
There's so many to choose from.
There are a lot. And speaking of which, guess what?
What?
I'm also reading a script right now because my husband and I were just cast in a play.
I am so excited because we can do that for the podcast.
Yes. Yes.
The
Okay.
book.
So you saw too. Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's a book. It's a movie. And now you're going to be in a seat. Ah! Okay.
It could also count as a TV show because we are doing Baskerville, which is a Sherlock Holmes murder mystery. It's also heavy on the comedy, which I'm very excited about. I'm playing the coveted role of Player 3, aka Actress 1. I'm so excited.
And your husband is?
My husband is Sherlock Holmes. We haven't done a show together in years. We can't. Not with our children and work and homeschooling. We just can't. So we take turns doing shows. But now we've worked it out. We told the director this is about the freest you're ever going to find us. And luckily we both got cast.
And Nana and Papa are moving there soon, and we can help take care of the babies.
So I'm so thrilled. So the Lord is good. We get to just play and have fun. And that was actually something that we prayed about because Ray and I were so torn on whether we should audition or not. And I said, let's just pray about it. Like, I know that's silly, but the Lord cares about silly things. So I just prayed. I was like, Lord, if this is going to add so much stress that it causes contention between us, I don't want to do it. Please shut the door. Please make it impossible. But if it's all right for us to just have a good time and it's the kind of stress that is positive and just brings us more joy and laughter, then make it something that we could enjoy together. And he did, and we're doing it.
The family who plays together stays together.
Yes. And our children are going to go with us to most rehearsals until y'all move here. uh
You learned to walk in a theater while I was doing rehearsals.
So I just learned it all from you.
So there you go. I have a I have a fun story.
Tell me.
So for tonight, I really wanted green eyeshadow and I didn't have any green eyeshadow. And I went to Walmart. They didn't have any. I went to Target. They didn't have any. I went to some places in the mall because I had some other things to get in the mall. They didn't have any. Nowhere had green eyeshadow. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to have any green eyeshadow. I'll do pink or something. Well, I had to go to Dollar General for something else. Ladies, if you are ever in a jam for makeup, you can get very inexpensive Dollar General eyeshadow. It's called Emeralds, and it the most fabulous greens. Dollar
Yes.
General.
Your makeup looks beautiful. I love your eyeshadow.
Dollar General. Never in my life have I ever bought makeup at Dollar General.
I'm baffled that some of those other places didn't have green.
Nobody had green. Nobody. I went to Dillard's. I mean, we're talking Clinique, Lancome, all that. Nobody had green. I'm like, where's all the green? Where did it go? I don't understand. But
Wow,
Dollar General, emeralds. Isn't that great?
that is great.
I never expected it to apply so well.
It looks beautiful. You're doing a
So
great ad for Dollar General makeup.
there you go. Dollar General, emeralds. So that might give a hint as to what we're doing
Dollar
tonight.
General, sponsor us.
We'll have to tag Dollar General.
Yeah. We should. We already announced in our last episode that we're doing Wicked. So if you listened to the end, then you already know that tonight is Wicked night. And so is next week. We're spending 2 weeks on Wicked. So before we dive in, I want to go ahead and remind our listeners that we are on social media. We're on Instagram at watching_books. And we also each have our own individual Instagram profiles. I am at vdspringer.author and mom is at laradawson.author. So you can find us, give us a follow. So if you go to our social media, you'll find that after each episode, we upload a post that also shares images that are related to each podcast episode. So if you're interested in that, you can see some of the things that we discuss here on the podcast on our Instagram page. And we also have a TikTok that's doing weirdly better than everything else. I don't understand algorithms or how social media works because I didn't really get into it very much until this venture. But we are at watching.books on TikTok as well. So I wanted to get that out of the way. So please come give us a follow, interact with us on Instagram. We would love to talk to you. And please remember that we're on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, whatever platform you enjoy this content on, please remember to rate and review us. It really helps us out a lot. And we would love to find other listeners and viewers who care about books, movies, and musicals as much as we do.
And thank you so much for the few little comments that we've had on YouTube. I appreciate it so much, and it's so nice to interact and get feedback and go back and forth. I already know something that we need to watch because it was brought to our attention. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so even though we've already announced it, in the interest of keeping with our tradition, Mom, what book are we watching today?
We are watching Wicked by Gregory Maguire.
So I already said in our last episode when we did The Wiz that it's pretty cool that Gregory Maguire's book Wicked already meets the criteria on its own for our podcast. And the criteria is that we only cover books that have been adapted to both stage and screen. We don't do books that have only been adapted to one or the other. We only cover books that have been adapted to both. And it's really neat, in my opinion, that Wicked and Wizard of Oz both meet criteria for this podcast.
Well, I think it's wonderful, and I'm just thrilled that we get to do it. I absolutely love this musical, and we would not have been able to do this if they hadn't come out with the movie. And so it's thrilling that they have come out with this movie now, and we're going to get to talk about it.
I totally agree. I'm so excited. And why are we splitting this episode about Wicked into two parts? We don't normally do that with one story.
Well, perhaps it's because the movie makers decided to make two movies out of this. So we have Wicked, which came out earlier this year. Wicked for Good opens the theaters on November 21st. It will have already dropped. We will be coming in with Wicked for Good and talking about it the following week. We'll stick with it for the first half of Wicked, which is Act 1, the musical, and then also the first movie, Wicked.
Yes. So this episode is going to be focused mainly on summarizing the book, talking about its differences with the musical and then with the film, and what those all look like and how they were inspired by each other, but also how they're different. For anyone who's new here, I'd like to let you know that we are not deep divers. We are not here to share a whole history of books, film, and stage. That is not what we do. We're just a couple of fans who absolutely love these forms of entertainment, and we love discussing them. My mom and I have spent our whole lives talking about these things. So that's what we do here. We just talk like fans. That's what we are. And if you ever hear us say a fact that we probably got wrong, please feel free to fact check us. Go for it. Let us know in the comments. And also, some of you have already given us some great tidbits on our other episodes about things that we did not know about shows that we've covered. And we love hearing that.
Mhm.
Please give us all of the behind the scenes information that you have because it's so fascinating to learn about. We love it.
Especially as theater nerds, we absolutely love knowing how things work. One of the things that someone kindly informed us about was the ice skating in the Broadway musical Meet Me in St. Louis. And I'm tickled that someone took the time to let us know how that was done.
Okay, consider this your blanket spoiler alert. As always, we will spoil things. We're talking Wicked, and part two has not come out into theaters yet. So if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want it to be spoiled because you haven't seen the musical, you're not familiar with it, this is your warning that we are going to do our best not to spoil part two, but some things may slip out because it is hard to talk about the book and the show without spoiling the end. Now, I will say, if you haven't read the book and you have no interest in reading the book, we are going to spoil the whole book, but it is very different from the musical. So spoiling the book is not necessarily going to spoil the musical. I really don't think at all, unless you don't know anything about The Wizard of Oz whatsoever. And if that's the case, then just go back and watch our previous two episodes. We'll fill you in. With that, just know this is a spoiler alert for Wicked Part 1. We are going to try not to spoil Part 2. It may happen, but we're going to do our best to be mindful that this should stop after Defying Gravity. We will try not to spoil anything past that. Is that fair, Mom?
Absolutely. Very, very fair.
Okay. So, spoiler alert for all of the book Wicked, but only the first half of Wicked the musical. So, with that, Wicked was written by Gregory Maguire and it was published in 1995, and it is inspired by L. Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz. Wicked reimagines the land of Oz long before Dorothy arrives, revealing the life of the girl who will later be known as the Wicked Witch of the West. Her name is Elphaba, and she is born with green skin, sharp teeth, and an aversion to water. From the moment of her birth, she is marked as different. Her parents, her pious mother Milena, and the well-meaning but ineffective minister Frex struggle to understand her, and Elphaba grows up feeling isolated from the world. When she goes away to Shiz University, Elphaba begins to form her own identity. She is assigned a roommate, Galinda, later Glinda, a privileged, popular, somewhat vain young woman. Though the two begin with a deep mutual dislike, they gradually develop a complicated friendship. At Shiz, Elphaba also discovers a talent for activism, especially after seeing how the wizard's government is stripping animals, sentient speaking creatures, of their rights. This growing political oppression pushes Elphaba toward rebellion. Eventually, Elphaba is invited to the Emerald City to meet the wizard. She hopes to influence him to stop the discrimination against animals. Instead, she discovers that the wizard is the one orchestrating it, exploiting fear to tighten his control over Oz. Horrified and disillusioned, Elphaba refuses to help him and becomes a fugitive, marked as a dangerous radical. She spends years moving through different regions of Oz, hiding with rebels, conducting secret experiments, and struggling with her own guilt, ideals, and desire for meaning. During this time, she falls in love with Fiyero, a prince she knew from Shiz, an affair that ends in tragedy when he is captured and killed, seemingly due to his association with her. This loss deepens Elphaba's sense of responsibility and feeds the harsh reputation growing around her. Isolated and burdened by grief, she retreats to Kiamo Ko, a remote castle trying to care for Fiero's wife and children while wrestling with her own failures. Over time, myth overtakes reality. Stories spread that she is a monster, a sorceress, a menace. Elphaba herself begins to wonder whether she is fated to be wicked or whether she is simply living inside the world's expectations. Her final confrontation comes when Dorothy Gale arrives in Oz. From Elphaba's perspective, Dorothy is an innocent girl swept into a political conflict she does not understand. Yet, she becomes entangled in the propaganda against Elphaba. The death of Elphaba's beloved sister Nessa Rose, killed accidentally when Dorothy's house lands in Munchkinland, pushes tensions further. Elphaba hopes Dorothy can return a long-lost object, the Grimory, that Elphaba had protected, believing it might redeem something in her life. But their meeting ends in chaos, fear, and misunderstanding. Ultimately, Dorothy throws water on her, an action that, due to Elphaba's strange physiology, kills her instantly. In the end, Wicked is the story of a misunderstood woman shaped by prejudice, politics, and loss. Maguire portrays Elphaba not as inherently wicked, but as someone fighting, flawed, passionately, desperately, for justice in a world determined to cast her as a villain.
My first thoughts about this book are how much I absolutely hate it. I did not care for this book at all. There are a lot of things in it that are quite disturbing, things that I had to skip over. I first started reading it years ago, and I refused to continue. When it got to a certain part, they go to the ballroom, and that was it. That did it for me. I refused to read anymore, and I put it down. And then when we started this podcast, I thought, I really don't want to read that book, but I picked it up. I read, I skipped scenes, and I don't care for this book. And that may be unpopular. I don't think it's too unpopular. There are a lot of people who do not care for this book. But what I love about it is how the incredible writers and musicians, composers came up with the storyline of Wicked and the music in Wicked to create this fabulous musical. So I'm grateful for the Book of Wicked, and I'm grateful for The Wizard of Oz for giving us the background and the basis for the movie musical Wicked.
Yes, I also did not enjoy the book. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was already so familiar with the musical and loved the musical before reading the book. At the same time, I think if I had read the book first, I would not have enjoyed it anyway. It's just not my kind of book. The Wizard of Oz is a children's book. Wicked absolutely is not. And so it takes a world created for children and makes it very adult, makes it very political, makes it very sexual, makes it very gory at some points. And it's not my favorite. And I also found it very dense at times. So the writing style is interesting. I think Maguire expands on the world of Oz in a lot of ways that were neat and creative. It's neat getting to know more about Munchkins and Winkies and dive into what those different realms of Oz might have been like. At the same time, it felt so out of place from the world we know from L. Frank Baum. Maguire chose to write from different perspectives. So, as many authors do, we don't just get a first person narrative or one omniscient narrator who is just telling the story from a third person perspective, but we get a third person perspective on Elphaba from her parents' perspectives, from Bach, who is in the story. He's one of Elphaba's friends at Shiz. I think we see Glinda from time to time and her perspective, if I remember right. But what I found interesting is that it's called Wicked: The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. And so you would expect that these perspectives would all be focused on, if it's not Elphaba herself, it's the people around her and how they perceive her and what they witness of her life. But there are a lot of instances where we are getting things that have nothing to do with Elphaba, where she's not present, she has nothing to do with it, and I don't understand why. It makes it very disjointed to me.
I appreciated how Gregory Maguire actually knew the book The Wizard of Oz. He stuck with the silver slippers, just like in L. Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz. And we meet people in Wicked that were in The Wizard of Oz. We see Bach, and Bach is mentioned in The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy stays at his house at one point. And so that is an interesting little twist there. We see more of the lands that we don't see in the movie The Wizard of Oz, but we see it in Wicked, and he expands upon that. And I appreciated that very much. I enjoyed getting a little bit more backstory on the Wicked Witch and how does she become wicked? People don't just grow up and go, I think I'll be wicked. What happens? And so to find those things in her life that made her who she was and maybe getting an answer about that, it was a great take. It was wonderful to look at. There were things he included in the book that didn't need to be there. It did not need to be there. Another thing I really liked was we see how the cowardly lion became cowardly. Victoria, do you want to talk about the talking animals?
Yes. Maguire uses a capital A to distinguish animals from common lowercase a animals. So as you're reading, you see that we are talking about sentient talking animals when he uses the capital A for animals. If it's lowercase, it's regular animals like we see in this world every day. But there is a difference. So there are animals of all different kinds of species who can speak, who can have careers, who have families and interact with other people like you and I would. But then there are the common animals who are simply animals who don't have speech. And we find out later on in the story, the wizard is one of the characters behind the propaganda that's forcing out the capital A animals, meaning that they are losing their positions, they aren't able to work. If they do work, they're doing it as like pack animals or animals in servitude of some sort. They become a lower class of animals. And some of them do start forgetting how to speak, or they just don't speak in order to blend in with the common animals so they don't get in trouble or arrested or things like that.
Dr. Dillman is one of the characters. He is a goat and he teaches at Shiz. And so we see him teaching. But one thing we also hear from him is he bleats sometimes and it's accidental and it's almost like he's beginning to lose his power of speech and the wizard is causing that. The animals are gonna end up losing their ability to speak. Um, when he loses his position at Shiz and he's taken away, there was another teacher who comes in and brings in a lion cub in a cage, and that little cub was so afraid, and he's shaking, and, Elphaba is just incensed over this little lion in the cage. And it's sort of a foreshadowing. This little lion cub is very afraid.
But also in the book, there is a character named Madame Morrible, and is she headmistress of Shiz? Or is she just a professor there? I can't remember.
I thought she was the head mistress.
I thought so too, and if I have that wrong, just correct me, someone.
In the book, Shiz is an all-girls school. There is a boys' school, but it is over a wall. It's not there. So the boys and girls are separated. And so that's kind of different from whenever anyone sees the movie or the musical where they're together. In the book, Shiz is an all-girls school and Madame Morrible is over this school.
And Elphaba is going to Shiz of her own accord. She's going to college herself. She's not going as her sister's guardian or anything like that. She goes there before her sister does. So if you're only familiar with the musical, that's one difference. And her roommate is Galinda, and they get along pretty well. It doesn't take long for them to warm up to each other, even though they have a lot of differences. Madame Morrible is absolutely horrible, and of course they do call her Horrible Morrible, and she is despicable. She's very different from the musical version in a lot of ways, and it's actually, I mean, this is kind of a spoiler alert for the second part. This does not happen in the musical, but in the book, oh my goodness, she comes to a very kind of gory end with Elphaba because, I should say, because she actually is the mastermind behind all the propaganda that's silencing the animals and is causing them to be subservient. So Elphaba has a great hatred for her that harkens back to her school days. She does not have the same relationship with her that she has in the musical at any point, and she exacts her revenge on Morrible, but finds it very dissatisfying in the end.
And Madame Morrible actually has magical powers that the wizard does not. The wizard truly is just a man, and Madame Morrible does have powers, and the wizard is taking all of the glory and stuff for whatever reason. I don't even know why. Do you, Victoria?
I found the wizard to be confusing and vague as a character. There's a lot of ambiguity around him and uncertainty of his motivations and who he is. We get little tiny snapshots into who he may have been. At the very end of the book, there's this almost suggestion that he may have been just a guy in Omaha about to end his own life before finding himself in Oz. He makes a discovery that leads to him ending his own life in the book. So I will say that does not happen in the musical. This is so wildly different from the musical, and the wizard it is not Jeff Goldblum at all. And we don't really get to know him or spend a lot of time with him. One thing that happens with the wizard that is very similar to the book The Wizard of Oz is that he appears to Elphaba in several different forms, or at least a couple different forms. She visits him on more than one occasion, and each time he appears differently to her. At one point, he appears to her as a skeleton, and then I don't remember the other forms he shows up as. There's something to do with light, I know, at some point with him. But yeah, he's pretty gross as a character as well. He holds a young woman captive. It's one of Fiero's daughters, and
Disturbing.
it's really, really disturbing, sad, and he's doing it to try to control Elphaba because he knows that she, despite herself, has feelings for this little girl. She cares about her.
So Fiero, who is a very much loved character in both musical versions. In the book, Fiero is married and he comes to the boys' school and he is a prince. So he's going to be ruling his land and he has children at home. So he is very different in this book than he is in the movie and the musical. In the second half, we see a whole lot about his wife and his children, and Fiera's wife is a nightmare.
She is, and it's a really interesting dynamic because they explain how his culture works. He's been married since he was what, like 7?
Something very young.
Really, really young, but he didn't meet his wife for several years. And it's just a weird dynamic where he has this devotion and loyalty to his family, but at the same time, he doesn't really have any emotional connection to his wife. And Elphaba does have a sense of wrongness. She feels shame for the affair, and just wants to make things right, which is how she ends up being introduced to his wife, is she wants to try to make amends. And well, she really wants to relieve herself of the burden that she's been carrying around, knowing that she had been having an affair with Fiyero. But his wife is like, yeah, okay, I don't want to hear it. She never allows Elphaba the satisfaction of of confessing. She knows, and she's not gonna let Elphaba have it. She's not going to let her relieve herself of the burden. She wants her to live with it, and so she never gives her the opportunity to explain or to apologize. One thing we get to see that's in The Wizard of Oz that we don't really get to see in the musical, that Maguire also puts into Wicked, is this lengthy trip that Elphaba takes across this desert, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it's kind of along the same journey that Dorothy and the Tin Man and Scarecrow and Lion have to take to get to the Wicked Witch's castle. But in Wicked, it's actually Fiero's home. So where they're actually going to find the Wicked Witch of the West to destroy her is Fiero's home. So it's actually his castle where she's living and with his whole family. It's a very Anne Boleyn situation.
Elphaba, one thing that we see in the book is that while she's on this journey, she has this kid tagging along with her, this boy, and it's almost like she doesn't give a flying flip about this boy. He tags along, he's always with her, he always does what she wants him to do. It's almost like he is her slave, and she doesn't care about him at all. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, there's a little boy named Lear. Well, it's after she has spent a great deal of time in a montery, which is akin to a nunnery, and she's been living with the Monts in the montery. She leaves, and she's got this little boy tagging along, and there's no explanation of who he is or where he came from because at this point, lots of time has passed. And I won't explain yet why she ends up in the montery. We'll talk about that with part 2, but she is there for she has a lot of memory loss issues, and she's there after a lot of political things go down with her acting as a rebel and things like that. I think what's so disappointing about her life is that she's got all of these aspirations and none of it comes to fruition. None of it. Nothing she tries succeeds. And that's one big thing that's very different about the musical from the book that I just find fascinating. Elphaba in the book, The Wicked Witch of the West, is very weak magically. And actually, Glinda is a much more powerful witch. She has much more excellent magical powers. She's a great witch, but Elphaba really struggles. She can barely ride a broom. It takes her a long time to figure out the whole broom riding thing.
I wonder why they changed it so much for the musical. It's like it's the opposite. Really, really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, Glinda, she doesn't come across to me as vapid in the book as she is in the musical. She's brilliant and very talented as a witch, and also good-natured and has a great sense of humor, does have a lot of friends everywhere. And yeah, she's friends with Elphaba, but the way she talks about her in later years is like, "Oh yeah, she's just that girl I knew in college. She was my old roommate." Yeah, I haven't kept up with her. Have you kept up with her? Have you heard about Elphaba? How's she doing? That's really Glinda's connection to her. They are not best friends. They are not super duper close. They're like how I would talk about some of my old college roommates. Like, "Oh yeah, I roomed with her and she was awesome. Have you heard how she's doing?"
Mhm.
That's how it feels.
Yeah, I want to go back to Elphaba's origin, her
Yeah.
birth. She had her mom and her dad, and her mom was unfortunately very promiscuous, and you come to learn that Elphaba came from an affair that her mother had, and the mother thinks that, "Oh my gosh, is that why my child is green?" Because "I had an affair." So, that was one of the questions that pops up, you wonder about that, and so then when she was pregnant again, they were so worried, they didn't want another green child, and so she was drinking a potion, and it was hopefully to make sure that her baby would be okay, the baby wouldn't be green, all of this stuff. It was some sort of nettle or something. And so when the baby was born, she was born with no arms in the book. So Nessa Rose has no arms. Nessa has trouble with her balance. She has to make sure she's stable before she starts walking. I've never thought about that. It's amazing what your arms do for you as far as balance. So her dad absolutely loves Nessa Rose. He makes her a pair of silver shoes to help her balance. And so that's where we see the shoes he gives them to her in the movie and the musical and everything.
Well, from what I remember, Frex in the book is very different from the father in the musical. He loves all of his children. And I say all because they actually have 3 children. Elphaba has a sister and a younger brother,
That's right.
who we don't really ever see or hear much about. So I can't even remember his name, but he's not a major character at all. But we see moments with Frex and Elphaba when she's a little toddler and when her mother is just fed up with her or doesn't know what to do with her or is disgusted by her or is creeped out by her because she's got these sharp teeth and bites everything and is kind of wild and violent. Frex will just pull her in and he'll cuddle with her, and he doesn't expect anything of her but for her to just be who she is. I found it very touching because it's very different from Frex from the musical, who wants to cast her aside and ignore that she exists, basically. Because yes, he definitely favors Nessa Rose in the movie. I don't remember him really favoring her in the book, but I think he had some residual guilty feelings because he would dote upon Nessa Rose. He did give her the shoes, and Elphaba really marks that. She tries not to hold it against him, but she fixates on those shoes quite a bit. What's interesting is yes, he made them so that, they would be sparkly and beautiful for Nessa Rose. However, the only reason they help her balance is because she asks Glinda to enchant them.
I forgot about that. It's been a while since I've read it.
So Glinda is the one who actually puts a spell on them to give her good balance. And so she's able to walk around no problem when she wears these shoes because of the enchantment that Glinda put on them. So they are magical silver slippers that help Nessa Rose balance. Silver, not ruby. So there is a character that we don't really get from the musical that I quite liked in the book, and it's her nanny. And it was her mother's nanny who comes back to help her mother with Elphaba, and she stays to help raise all 3 of the children. But she goes to Shiz with Nessa Rose when Nessa Rose joins Shiz
Yes.
later. So while Elphaba is already there, Nessa comes in as well and tries to join the friend group, but she's very pious. She doesn't really get along with them as much. She doesn't quite fit in with Elphaba's friend group. It's such a different dynamic than what we see in the musical. But Nanny is there throughout most of the book and is definitely the most maternal figure that Elphaba has.
And you had to have a nanny at Shiz in order to be assigned a room. Your nanny had to be with you. And Glinda didn't have one, and neither did Elphaba. And that's how they ended up being roomies.
Linda did have one and she was killed.
Then how did they get to be roomies?
I remember Glinda is able to live alone because she has her chaperone. But when her chaperone is killed, Glinda can't live in the special dormitories anymore. She has to move down with like the lower class dormitories and have a roommate because her caretaker is murdered. I think that's what happens.
And so then that's when she and Elphaba become roommates.
And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's close to how it happens. But I do remember that Glenda had one and she was killed because she witnessed something about Dr. Dillamond's death. It all happened so fast early in the book. With this being focused on the life and times of the Wicked Witch of the West, here's something that I did appreciate that's in The Wizard of Oz that we don't see in the musical, but that Maguire highlights. And this is in part 2, but I'm only going to highlight it because, again, it's not in the musical. And we do see this in The Wizard of Oz. When Dorothy and her crew are coming to find the Wicked Witch of the West, aka Elphaba, they are attacked by bees, wolves, and crows, which is exactly what the Wicked Witch sends after them to try to stop them before they get to her in The Wizard of Oz. And it was really neat to see that they actually had Elphaba trying her best to stop them from getting to her. I think you can just see she's slowly just losing her mind. She's becoming quite crazed toward the end of the book, but she is trying desperately to stop them from getting to her. And what I think is interesting is that we actually get to see how she has command of these creatures, what she's able to do with them. We do see how she gets flying monkeys. It's very different from the musical.
The flying monkeys in the book, it was really interesting, and it was very disturbing at the same time how it came about.
Mhm.
It's almost like she was sewing them together. It was very disturbing.
Mhm.
Um, she created these flying monkeys.
Yeah, she, like, sews their wings onto them, but they're all very experimental. She has several failed attempts at creating flying monkeys. It's quite brutal. She does have one monkey, Chicory, who does is in the musical that she teaches how to speak. She's trying to teach him how to talk. He's not meant to be an animal with an A, but she's convinced she can teach him. And I think he picks up a couple words, but it's nothing. Again, most of her endeavors fail. That's like the whole main premise of her life is that she has all these aspirations and they just don't come to fruition.
It's depressing. The book
Mhm.
is depressing. There's nothing good about it. I just don't care for the book. So I'm ready to move on from the book. Is there anything else we need to cover in the book?
I think
Oh,
if there is, we'll think about it when it comes up in the musical.
I thought of something. The mother, when she has the affair, she was drinking this elixir, this green elixir. And we see that that is one thing that Elphaba has is this bottle that had contained this green elixir. And that was something that was her mother's. And so she takes that with her. And she does that in the movie and the musical as well.
It's also why she's so attached to Nessa Rose's shoes, and this is not in the musical. Her father does end up passing away. We see so much of their lives. We see Elphaba basically become an old woman, not super old, I guess, middle-aged. But she's fixated on these shoes because they're the last thing to remind her of her father and her family. And so anyway, yeah, we can talk about that more in part 2. One last thing I'd like to note about the book is that Maguire didn't just pull inspiration from The Wizard of Oz, the book by L. Frank Baum. He also pulled some things that are straight from the 1939 movie that we don't see in the book. One of those things being that Elphaba is green. That's
Right.
not in the book. If he had designed Elphaba based on the original book, The Wizard of Oz, she would have one eye which would be have telescopic powers, and she would like to wear her hair in 3 braids on her head, and she'd be a very short old woman and wear a lot of really mismatched patchy clothes. But no, he instead decided to focus on the design of the witch from the 1939 movie and
Mhm.
make her green. So very interesting. It's also interesting too, and I just thought of this. Elphaba, as a baby in the book, is born under really weird circumstances. I mean, not only did her mom have an affair, have several affairs, but she's born in a storm by the midwives are a coven. Did you catch that?
Yes, I remember that.
Uh-huh. And I thought that was really interesting because we had like the maid and the hag and the whatever the third one was. But the hag continues to appear throughout the entire book. But unless I
No.
spent a lot of time sitting and trying to connect the dots of all the times that this one character appears throughout the book, I couldn't tell you why she keeps showing up, what her purpose is, because she shows up in a different capacity every time we see her. She's a completely different type of character under the same name. But I think it's the same character. She just keeps
Yep.
appearing in different roles. I don't get it. I don't know what the purpose is. I don't really want to think too hard about it or deep dive into it, but I am sure there are people who want to tell me their theories or their thoughts
Yeah.
on that.
Tell us.
Welcome
Tell us
to.
who this hag is.
Okay, let's talk musical. October 30th, 2003 is when this musical debuted on Broadway.
Yes, and we were privileged to get to see the touring company of Wicked when they came through. When did we see that? 2000 what?
Several years
Do you
ago.
remember? Several
No.
years ago. Several years ago, we saw that. And oh, did we get a good one or what? Okay, we didn't get Kristen and we didn't get Idina. Okay, that's okay. But we did get Jessica Vosk
We got Jessica Vosk.
as Elphaba. In case you don't know who she is, you should look her up on YouTube. Find her. She was amazing. Amazing.
And for any fans of Has Been Hotel, she's a voice in Has Been Hotel. You would know her.
Jessica Vosk. We got to see her, and it was wonderful, and it was thrilling, and I was so excited to be able to finally see this. My husband was deployed, and so Victoria and I just went to see it together, and it was great fun.
Yeah. Yeah, so we saw them when they came through Kansas City. I had been listening to this music since 2003 when the Broadway cast recording came out, and I got the CD and I played it in my bedroom on blast every day for a year straight. Uh, just turned 9,
Um,
and I would play it on my karaoke machine, and I was obsessed. I'd always been a fan of musicals, and I was already a major fan of Kristen Chenoweth because as a little girl, I loved Sally Brown in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, which is what she won her Tony Award for. So I loved that musical already, and I was so excited that Kristen was in another musical, and I loved Wicked, and I have loved it since I was 9 years old. And I don't think I had ever really heard vocals like that before. Yes, of course I had because of you, and I'd heard belting, I'd heard wonderful singers, but there was something about Wicked. I just remember hearing Idina Menzel belting Defying Gravity for the first time, and I think I had to replay it 6 times in a row because my mind was blown at that song as a little girl.
I don't know if you had ever heard anyone like Kristen before because you loved Evita. So you had grown up listening to Patti LuPone, and so I know that you had heard that. I don't know, you were never as big into Phantom of the Opera. That's what I loved when I was in school. I
I
loved
was
Phantom.
massively a fan of Phantom of the Opera.
Okay, so Phantom was a big one for you.
Oh, yeah, I would take the little booklet from the Phantom of the Opera CD that had all the lyrics to the entire musical in it, and I would go sit on Dad's lawnmower in our shed, and I would sing it at the top of my lungs. The whole musical, every part.
So you were a fan of Phantom of the Opera. I just couldn't remember. That one did not stand out to me like Evita and Cats and Wicked and You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. So that one didn't stand out. You kept that one hidden.
Not on purpose.
So you had heard you'd heard Christina and those wonderful voices, but this was a different, very modern musical, almost a pop musical. Stephen Schwartz, you outdid yourself. He wrote the music and the lyrics. It's so good, and I would love to be in it one day, but I don't think I'm good. Madam Marvel, Madam. Maybe one day, other people will get to do this. The way the musical begins, you can't forget it. It is so powerful. The opening number draws you right in, right from the get go.
And it's got the same jubilance that The Wizard of Oz has, the movie, when they're all singing Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. It's the celebration of the Munchkins. But it's got this almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Foreboding underlying feeling to it. So it's exciting, it grips you. You are hooked in as soon as you hear the first note from the orchestra. But because of the way the music is written, it's like something is just a little bit off about what these people are celebrating. So if you're used to ding dong, the witch is dead, it's very different to hear good news, she's dead. Yeah, it's brilliant. And we get introduced to Glinda in the beginning. It starts with, okay, we know that the Witch of the West is dead, which is not how the book starts, but the musical sure does. And seeing it on stage was so good. At the very end of Good News, we get that projected silhouette of Elphaba doing her poses as the Wicked Witch. She's overshadowing everyone on stage, even in death, if that makes sense. And there was something about that image sitting in the audience that I just adored. I loved that. So in the very beginning of the show, they're all celebrating her death, very much like when Dorothy first lands in Oz. And I think this is what's cool about Wicked versus The Wizard of Oz is once you've seen Wicked, you can look at The Wizard of Oz and go, this is a great example of history is written by the victor. Because if you want to look at The Wizard of Oz through Wicked's eyes, we're seeing history be rewritten to fit the victor's narrative, not necessarily what really happened.
Oh, yes. And that's a really, really good point. Glinda's entrance. We see her come in her bubble, just like she does in the movie. She comes in a bubble, and it's so great to see her come on stage, and I loved it. And so I got to see this with you, but your dad and I and my sister and brother-in-law, we all went to see it in London, West End. And West End, we got the understudy, Glinda. We first saw Frozen in London, and when we went, we expected to hear them with British accents, and they had American accents. And so that really threw me off. When we went to see Wicked, well, therefore, I was expecting American accents because Frozen, they were American accents. They had British accents in Wicked. It was, whoa, okay, that threw me off. So they did a vice versa. And so it was kind of funny, but I got used to it. And Lucy Jones was Elphaba, and she did an incredible job. I loved her. We were on the third row, so I got to see their faces. I'd like to be able to see facial features and reactions because it adds to the acting for me. And then Lisa Ann Wood played Glinda. And at the end of Act One, I was talking to my family and I said, it just seemed like you could see her acting. You could see her thinking, and you saw the thought process. She's in this bubble and she would sing. And then when her part was done, it's like she just lost character. She just kind of went blank. It was so odd. She had a beautiful voice. She did a great job. But I did find her on YouTube and I was able to go, yeah, I see it again, seeing her on YouTube. So it'd be interesting for you to see it and see what you think. You're looking like.
I will say this. So I never done theater professionally. I don't want to. Even if I did want to, there's no saying that I would ever be successful at it. Not interested in that. I do it for fun. If I have criticism for anybody on the stage, it's just as a viewer. It's just as someone enjoying the show. And not all performances are to be enjoyed. Not all performances are what people want to see or what they expected. And different people have different tastes too. The person sitting next to you in the audience might have thought that was the best Glinda they'd ever seen in their lives. That was just your perspective. And you're giving your perspective based on your experience as an actress. But it just is what it is. We're consumers of entertainment as well. And we have thoughts and opinions on things, including people's performances, even if we don't have that level of talent to get us to where they are.
Yeah,
I mean, good for them. I'm
she
glad that
got paid.
they're doing. Yeah,
She was paid to do this, so obviously she's very, very good. But, and like I said, like I said, it could be me just going, I can see her thought process. I can see
mhm.
her thinking, and I like to be totally swept away, and I don't see your thinking when you act.
I believe you've said something similar about one very, very wealthy, very famous, very popular Keanu Reeves.
Yes, there are times you can really see him acting, see his thinking, and yes.
I just threw you under the
Sorry,
bus with that one.
it's out there, but it's true, and it is what it is. But, yeah,
So,
I don't want to be a I don't wanna be a professional actress.
Amanda, so the one that you and I saw, we had Jessica Vosk as Elphaba, and we had Amanda Jane Cooper as Glinda, and they were wonderful. They were touching,
Mhm.
they were believable, and they were also very funny opposite each other at times. It was a lovely cast. I had a great time with this experience. And I just remember sitting next to you when everything started, and we're just enjoying it. We're soaking it all in. We're loving that we're getting to see this musical that we'd fallen in love with just through audio only for the first time in front of us live. And when Jessica Vosk came out and started singing, and when she sang The Wizard and I, you and I grabbed hands and we were just squeezing the ever loving heck out of each other's hands because we were both so thrilled with how amazing she was.
Oh, oh, yes. She was just amazing. I couldn't have been happier if Idina had been there. I mean, I was that happy with our Elphaba. She was so, so good.
Yeah, she was amazing. And I came away from that experience thinking, and Amanda Jane Cooper was wonderful. She was a solid Glinda. She had a beautiful
Yes.
voice. She was great. And she made the character her own. And Glinda is such a fun character if you allow yourself to have fun with it. Okay, well, we should talk about how the musical itself, just its structure and its storyline, how it differs from the book.
Absolutely. So one big difference from the book to the musical is Nessa Rose is in a wheelchair in the musical. And I thought that was a pretty good choice, really good choice. I think it would be harder to find someone with no arms than it would be to maybe have someone in a wheelchair. And so it works.
That is not where I expected you to go with that. I thought we were going to start with like, well, it's mainly focused on the relationship between Glinda and Elphaba and not so much on the politics and Glinda's activism or Elphaba's activism and all of that.
Thankfully,
Jump to Nessa
thankfully,
Rose.
yes.
Well, so along that vein, then we do we do have a lot of returning characters. So we do have Bach, we have Nessa Rose, we have Fiero, we have Madame Morrible, Dr. Dillamond, the Wizard, all of those characters that also appear in the book. We do have Elphaba's father and mother, but they're very, very, very minor characters. They're not as pervasive as in the book. So Dr. Dillamond is their professor. And like Mom already, Shiz in the musical is a co-ed school. So men and women go to school together and have classes with Dr. Dillamond, the goat. And he does end up losing his position due to losing his power of speech. Although in the book he's murdered. So it is a different outcome. And I won't say fully what we see what happened with him, but in the book he's murdered really early on. He does not have the same impact in the story as he does in the musical, I would say.
Yeah. In the musical, Dr. Gilman has a mask over half his face to make him more look like a goat. And we'll talk about the movie later.
William Humans was Dr. Dillamond in the original cast, and
Okay.
Madame Morrible was played by Carol Shelley.
Okay. Yeah.
And then just to talk about the rest of the cast, Joel Grey was the wizard, the legendary Joel Grey. There he is. So Mom is showing me her autographed picture of Joel Grey that she got from him. Oh, and it says for Laura. He put your name on
Yes,
it.
it does. Thank you, Joel Gray.
Michelle Federer was Nessa Rose, and Christopher Fitzgerald was Bach. I am
Who
only
was
now realizing that Christopher Fitzgerald was Bach. He's huge now, and I had no idea he originated the role.
I don't know him.
Oh, he's done so much. We'll talk about it later. Norbert Leo Butz was Fiero.
Oh, I loved him. I think he's wonderful. And if you've ever seen the TV show Smash, he's has a little part in that as
Really
he's
small.
a small part, but as a Broadway actor, you get to see
Mhm,
him sing and dance, and
mhm.
that's a lot of fun.
And yell at an actress to get off the stage.
That's right.
Um, yeah, he's an excellent Fiero. He's very charismatic.
I thought that ours was really good. Jeremy Woodard was our Fiero. And in England, our Fiero, one thing that I really liked about him, he stayed in character the whole time. There was a part after he'd been singing Dancing Through Life, and he had a moment before they go to the ballroom, and he's down stage. So we see him very close to the edge, but he's kind of in the dark. That poor actor was sweating up a storm. And he is standing over there, cool as a cucumber, takes out a handkerchief, and he is blotting, and he is acting just like Fiero would. It was so good. I appreciated that so much. He remained in character while he is trying to wipe the sweat off his face so he can continue performing for us because he didn't get to leave the stage. And I'm sure he didn't want to turn around and then splash us with his sweat. So I appreciated that he was wiping the sweat off of his face and neck.
I do like that you emphasize how important it is for you to see characters on stage remain in character. The difficult thing about theater is when you're on stage, you're on stage. And sometimes you're not doing anything on stage. Sometimes you are just told to stand there and that's your direction. And what do you do in that case? You remain in character. You do things that your character would do. You react the way your character would react. Not you. You don't lose interest in the plot. You don't lose interest in what you're doing up there just because you haven't been told to do anything. And it's so much harder than it sounds. Until you're up there, standing in the background, waiting for a scene to end, you don't realize how hard it is to stay focused and in character.
And until you are up there on stage, you don't realize what you would ordinarily do with your hands. It's a big thing. You have to learn what to do with your hands when I'm really going into my character, trying to figure out who my character is. I make sure I know what I'm doing with my hands in scenes because it is a thing. It's a thing.
I remember focusing really hard on that as Miss Honey. I learned early on with acting that standing with your arms down by your sides does not look as awkward as it feels. Just because we don't do it regularly when we're having normal conversations doesn't mean it looks unnatural in a stage setting. You can stand there and have a conversation with your arms down by your sides, and it looks totally fine usually if you do it right, as long as you're not stiff. But as Miss Honey, I thought really hard about what to do with my hands because I wanted it to be clear how nervous she was, and so I did a whole lot of hand wringing. I did a lot of, like, picking at my fingernails, which I don't normally do at all. That does not come naturally to me. The only time, and I this is probably is such a silly little detail that nobody ever noticed, but the only time I had her confident in what her hands were doing, in her very first scene when she walks on stage, she's holding a book, and the only time she was confident in herself and her body language before the very end of the show is when she's holding a book. And I don't know, it was just a choice I made. It probably didn't make much of a difference, but it helped me with my characterization. But yeah,
Ah,
thinking about your hands, so much thought goes into
yes.
hands.
Yes, it does.
I don't know how we got onto that, but something we didn't talk about with the book is, and I really, I would love to see this version of Fiyero, and I don't think we ever will. Fiyero is described in the book as being dark skinned and having these beautiful tattoos that are diamonds and they're in a pattern going all the way up his face and down his neck, down the left side of his body. And it looks in my mind very beautiful. And I want to see that version of Fiyero so badly. And I just don't think we ever will.
In England, we had the dark skin, but they didn't do the tattoos. I really think they could have done that. Maybe it would have been more time in the makeup chair, but, that was our Fiero.
That's just one thing that I really liked his description in the book. They take out a lot of minor characters from the book and grow other characters like Bach and like Fiyero. Bach is actually a pretty significant character in the book. We get a lot of things from his perspective. And I do like how Elphaba has a whole conversation with him after Dorothy ends up in Oz. And they're just chatting about this girl who came and stayed with him. And she's so annoyed that she's pleasant and she's just a normal little girl. And Bach is just chatting with Elphaba, aka the Wicked Witch of the West, like an old friend because that's what she is. And that was such a neat perspective to have this munchkin guy chatting with Elphaba. And in the musical, very different dynamic, totally different. So we do have Bach. And like in the book, which we haven't really talked about, Bach is obsessed with Glinda, absolutely obsessed with her. And he is in the musical as well. In the book, it's more like a crush that sort of fizzles out over time. He doesn't he doesn't remain obsessed with her. It's just a crush like we all get and it passes and he moves on and marries someone else. But in the musical, it turns out very differently. And if you've only seen the movie, we know from part one that Glinda sort of pairs him with Elphaba's sister, Nessa Rose. And so they have a
Right.
little thing going, but you can see underlying all of that is that he still has those very strong feelings for Glinda. And so we'll see where that takes us in part two. But that's one thing that's different. You've seen the musical on stage twice, so tell me if you remember
Yeah.
this. In the movie,
Okay.
I love that everyone describes Nessa Rose as tragically beautiful, I guess because she's in a wheelchair. And Elphaba comes in and goes, "I'm Elphaba. I'm beautifully tragic." Does she say that in the musical on stage? Because that cracked me up. I didn't remember that.
I don't remember. I do not remember.
Well, I think it would have stood out to me.
Sadly, these are one-time things. You see it, and you've got to lock it in if you can, lock it in your memory. I've seen it twice, so
Yeah. but I can't remember. Anyway, I thought that line was hilarious. I'm beautifully tragic. And I also love her line that she's like, "Oh, this is my sister, Nessa Rose. As you can see, she's a perfectly acceptable color."
Yes, she does say that.
It's great. Well, let's also talk about the differences with Fiero. How we know that from the book he has an affair with Elphaba, right? And there are things we don't really want to get into with him that are going to come up in part 2. But how else is he different in the musical?
Well, in the musical, we do see Glinda, and she says, she wants to marry him, and they're like the it couple. But y you can see there's a little spark between Fiero and Elphaba.
Mhm.
There's a spark, something there, and, despite the fact that he is engaged to Glinda.
Mhm.
But you kind of see that perhaps Glinda cares more for him than he cares for her. But then once again, in the book, he's married. Now he's not married in this. He's not married in the musical, so that's a difference, isn't it?
Right. Yes, I think that's important to note is he is not married in the musical, just in the book.
Mm.
However, in the musical, I think Glinda likes the idea of him more than she actually loves him.
I
She's
can
in
see
love
that.
with the status, how they would be so perfect together, the image of them and, her background, his background, it just makes sense. And it's not really much to do with him. And again, and I think I'm dipping a bit into the movie because I can't remember a lot of the dialogue from the show because again, I saw it once several years ago and there's no way I can go back and watch it again unless I go buy another ticket somewhere and see it again. I do know in the movie Glinda starts expressing concern that Fiero has been thinking and it's really starting to worry her that he's thinking. And it's after Elphaba has sparked something in him. With her passion and her activism, he is inspired by her. And Glinda is not dumb, but she's not quite putting it all together because in her mind, like they're the couple, they make sense, they're end game, but it's the idea of him, not him.
So that's one thing. The activism in the book was so annoying and it just got on my nerves and I just wanted to skip all of it. Whereas in the movie, it makes a little more sense. She wants to stand up for the animals, the speaking animals. She doesn't want them losing their jobs. She feels like that they should have every right, just like they do. They speak, they wear clothes. They should be allowed to have their lives. And so she's really standing up for them. That's the activism that we see. And so that's going against what we learn by the end of the movie. We see that the wizard and Madame Morrible are in cahoots, and they are the ones who are against all of these speaking animals. And so that is where her activism comes in. And to me, it makes a lot more sense than everything that we read about in the book. And so I really like how they just trimmed it down for the movie and for the musical. It made a lot more sense to me. It made it more tolerable and made it more enjoyable to watch too.
I think that's exactly right, and you can get behind it. You can
Mhm.
understand Elphaba's perspective, you agree with her, you're rooting for her, because you also agree as an audience member that what they're doing to the animals is wrong and we're not getting caught up in the weeds of all the very confusing activism. It's very hard to understand exactly what Elphaba is fighting for because there isn't as much emphasis on the animals as there is a lot of other things that it was like I could not quite get a grasp on exactly what she was fighting for. It just wasn't very clear to me. I know the animals had something to do with it, but that was not the main point. And I couldn't even really figure out who her enemy was. Like, yes, she was against Morrible, and the wizard once she figured out they were corrupt. But she had people that was in contact with, and she was part of some group. We never get to know them or learn anything about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just got really confusing and weedy. So the fact that the musical, knowing they have time constraints, they're trying to tell a story with a very clear message that might not be the same message as the book. And in fact, it's really not. And so they had to narrow that down. And I think they made all the right choices with that.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the best songs in the show for me, but there's so many good songs, but one of the most fun songs is Dancing Through Life, which is Fiero's. And he is all about partying. He doesn't want to study. He's not worried about books. He doesn't want all that stuff. He wants to party and dance through life. And everything's a big fun fest. And so it's a really, really fun song. fast-paced, lots of great choreography. It is so much fun, and it is before they go to the ballroom.
Dancing Through Life and the whole Oz Does Ballroom scene is so much fun. It's where we start getting together pieces of Elphaba's iconic look because Glinda, we come to find out through the musical and through this song, is the reason why she gets her famous pointy black witch hat. So in this scene, Glinda is gifted a pointy black hat that she finds hideous, and she is trying to figure out what to do with it. I think her grandmother gave it to her, and she doesn't know what to do with it. So, as a prank, as a cruel joke, she gifts it to Elphaba. Elphaba interprets this gift as genuine and sees it as an act of friendship from Glinda, and she wears it proudly to the Ozdas Ballroom, where she has not been invited, but she's going to show up. And she wants to dance and be a part of it. And she has been outcast this whole time. And there in the Ozdas Ballroom, she is outcast once again. But it is the chance for Glinda to step forward and show genuine friendship and acceptance, which she does. And it's one of the best parts of the whole Dancing Through Life song.
It is. It's very good, and they did a great job in the movie as well. It's a lovely scene.
What are the biggest differences you see with the wizard compared to the book? We do see Elphaba and Glinda go to the Emerald City like they do in the book, but Elphaba has been invited there by the wizard because of her magical ability, which Glinda does not possess, funny enough. And it does create some good comedic moments, but Glinda does not have magic, but Elphaba does. And the wizard wants to meet her. Turns out, of course, if you know from part one of the movie, the wizard and Madame Morrible just want to use her in order to be able to use this ancient book, the Grimoire, which is a magical book that can only be read by someone who possesses magic. And when we meet the wizard, he is this charming old man. And he really draws Elphaba in and makes her feel accepted and gives her so much hope for her own future. And the idea of them teaming up and working together, only for that all to come crashing down when she realizes that he's one of the reasons why the animals are losing their power of speech. And that's what leads into the big end of Act One finale song, Defying Gravity, where Glinda and Elphaba, who have, through the course of the incidents at the Ozdas Ballroom and their time at Shiz together, have become very dear best friends. This is where they part ways. And we see that Glinda makes a choice to stay behind because Elphaba gives her the option to come with her, where they can fight together. They can fight against the wizard and Madame Morrible. They can make different choices and try to make Oz a better place, and Glinda stays behind. And they don't seem to hold it against each other for the choices that they're making. They don't understand each other's perspectives fully. They don't necessarily agree with the choices they're each making, but they still maintain that they are friends through this song. We get to see Elphaba fly at the end of Act One. She's got her broom that she has enchanted, and this is all after she has been unwittingly used to create flying monkeys. But she didn't know that's what she was doing, and it greatly distresses her. And that's sort of how we end up with her turning against the wizard and all of that.
So in the musical, she was the only one who could read the words in the Grimoire. Madame Morrible couldn't, and of course the wizard couldn't. He has no magical powers at all. But even Madame Morrible could not read it. It was an ancient language, and she could only decipher a few words. And Elphaba opens that book and reads it right away. And then all of a sudden we see this one monkey that was in there, a normal monkey. All of a sudden he starts writhing on the floor and squealing, and then you see the wings pop out of his back. She has created a flying monkey by reading from this book. And then you see other monkeys that are there, and they all grow those wings. And it's a very sad scene to see these monkeys going through. The book is worse, but it is that way in the musical stage version and the movie. And the stage, they're great. You know, they have some of the monkeys who fly that you see, but you just see them, they're all over the place. Very erratic, very manic. It's really, really good.
It is good, and it stands out to me because I found it really disturbing too, watching the musical paired with the music, seeing the flying monkeys come crawling and flying up onto the
Yeah.
stage. It's neat to see how they do that. Uh,
One thing I want to add about the movie, when Elphaba is invited to go to Oz to meet the wizard, Glinda was staying back. And there's this fabulous train that they built just for the movie. It's the most amazing looking train, and Elphaba grabs Glinda. "Come on, let's go," and Glinda joins her, and that's how they end up together. So then they get there and we get to see a wonderful cameo. There's a little performance going on, and out comes Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth. And they have a wonderful cameo and they sing, and it was so good. And I saw someone else talking about this scene and how they didn't like it. And I thought, how can you not like it? So I guess there are differing opinions about that scene. I personally loved it. I loved seeing them come back. I loved that they made an appearance in this film. It just made me so happy. I grinned from ear to ear. So I personally really, really enjoyed it. And they had a song that they sing that's new, that is not in the stage version. And the choreography in Oz, all of the choreography everywhere. Shiz, the library, which is Dancing Through Life, the choreography in the movie, oh my goodness gracious. I guess we should talk about who is in the movie.
yeah. So the choreographer for Wicked the movie is Christopher Scott, and I agree. The choreography throughout the whole movie is incredible, and it's neat because it's different from the stage choreography, but also it's very different from choreography that we see in most other movie
Any
musicals. So I appreciate how different it is. Of course, with the movie, I think most people know we have Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, and we have Ariana Grande as Glinda. And then we've got other supporting cast members played by legends like Michelle Yeoh is Madame Morrible and Jeff Goldblum is the wizard. And we've got Jonathan Bailey as Fiero. So the cast is just wonderful. I think it's perfectly cast. When I first found out that they were going to do Wicked the movie in 2 parts, I was so annoyed because I'm like, Why do we have to drag it out even longer? It's already a long musical, and we're gonna drag it out into 2 parts." Well, you know what? I'm not mad about it because I saw the first part, and it's so beautiful. The imagery, the amount of practical sets that John M. Chu used as a director, I loved. I love that they sang live and they did it well for this one. Cynthia Erivo, she's incredible. Her voice is amazing.
I have to say, the first time that I heard that Ariana Grande was gonna play Glinda, I was very disappointed, and I didn't want to go see it. Yes, that girl can sing, but I didn't know if she would be able to act it. There are some productions you'll go see live, the community theater, and they may cast the people who can sing. They might not be able to act the best, but by Jove, they can sing. Or they may go the other way. They may cast someone who can really act, and their singing is okay, or it may not be the best. Sometimes it can go either way. And so I just didn't know what to expect. And then I saw it. Ariana is so good as Glinda. I just love her. She's adorable. She adds so much texture to it. And I absolutely love her. You don't see her acting. You don't see her thinking. She is a wonderful actress. And Cynthia Erivo, of course, she's just wonderful. There's a playfulness to Cynthia's Elphaba, in my opinion. She doesn't seem quite as serious, I think, and I appreciate that a lot, and just that playfulness and the girlishness that we see between her Elphaba and Ariana's Glinda, especially in Popular. You really see it in that. Popular is such a cute song. It is long and drawn out in the movie. They just add so much to it, and I loved it.
They did that with several of the songs, drawing them out, adding things in between, pausing songs where we're not used to a pause. Defying Gravity, the whole ending
Yes.
is drawn out in ways that you're not used to if
Yes.
you're used to the musical or the version, I should say. So people have different opinions on if they like that or not, and I can appreciate it for what it is as a movie version while still appreciating the original genius of the stage musical. So I'm fine with both versions and I'm fine with accepting them as they are individually. And I agree that Ariana Grande understood the character. When we were in theaters, when I'm sitting with my husband, I had my newborn and he's asleep with me and we're in the movie theater and we're watching the opening song about the Wicked Witch being dead. And Ariana Grande comes in as Glinda and she's talking to the Munchkins and she's doing her little hello Ozians. When they get to the very end of the song and they bring out the effigy, the giant
Yeah.
straw elphaba to burn, and they hand Glinda the torch to light it. I knew watching this, Ariana Grande is singing her insanely high notes, and you don't have to know the story to see her choices as an actress. And I mean that in a very good way because she's singing good news. She's throwing this torch on the Wicked Witch statue thing, and she's walking away while the Munchkins are celebrating, and it's all over her face. Her acting just in that part alone, I was so blown away by how she used her face. I still will just go back and rewatch that little bit over and over and over because it's honestly a masterclass in understated acting. It's very, very good. It was clear that she worked really hard to earn this role, and it is a role she's wanted to play her whole life. I'm glad that she got to do it because she's done it justice.
She has definitely done it justice. If you hear her and if you compare her to Kristen Chenoweth, Kristen has a trained operatic voice, a more mature sounding voice. Ariana's is more pop, but I feel like this is more of a pop musical, so it works. And her voice soars crystal clear, just absolutely beautiful. She even sings higher than Kristen Chenoweth, and it's just mind boggling. I see for good 2 days before it opens in theaters everywhere, and I'm very excited to see this, see what happens, to get to hear Cynthia and Ariana sing some more incredible songs. I cannot wait to hear Elphaba and Fiero do their number.
I'm really excited to see it too. And we won't talk about it at all until we come here to record. We will share it with everybody next week.
I wanted to mention that we do have Professor Dillerman in the movie as well, and he is voiced by Peter Dinklage. And he does such a good job. Listening to him, I just went, that doesn't even sound like Peter Dinklage. It was so
Mhm,
good. Very, very well done. So it was very nice to hear him in this role. They did a CGI Dr. Dillerman,
mhm.
but
Yep,
it
and
was really good.
he's a returning actor to our podcast because we talked about him in Cyrano. I loved getting to see the visuals of the movie. I think Jeff Goldblum's a great wizard. I love Michelle Yeoh as Madame Morrible. She has such a commanding presence. I think she brings something less silly to the role, as I think typically on stage Madame Morrible is a bit silly, or maybe silly is not the right word. I don't know. She just brings something different to it, and her costuming is wildly different from the stage version.
Michelle Yeoh
Yes.
commands the screen when she comes on. You look at her, you pay attention to her. She knows her role and she knows she is the headmistress of this school. And she just does a wonderful job in the part. And I know she was very nervous about singing. She's already sung a song in part one, but I felt like she did a fine job. And so it was a pleasure to hear her. And I think she did the part justice.
Yes, yes. She was telling the director, John M. Chu, "What do you mean you wanna put me in a musical?" She's like, "I don't sing." And I heard someone say after they'd seen the movie, "Oh, yeah, I forgot she sings." I'm like, "No, you didn't, not 'cause she doesn't. She doesn't sing. This is the first time." I think I already said I love Jeff Goldblum as the wizard, and the defying
I
gravity scene.
I love him in anything that he does. And so you brought up Defying Gravity. Defying Gravity This is the turning point in the film. This is
Mhm,
when we see Elphaba take off. She's going against everything that the wizard and Madame Morrible want her to do. So Madame Morrible lets everyone know, "Oh, get her." And she starts commanding those flying monkeys, get her back. She is wicked. She's evil. Stay away from her. Madame Morrible is the one who places that moniker on Elphaba. She's wicked. That is the turning point in the movie. This is where the first movie ends, and it's going to pick up
mhm.
with For Good. We'll see what happens now that Elphaba has been labeled wicked by Madame Morrible and the wizard. People who are highly respected. Everyone loves the wizard, and Madame Morrible is very respected. It'll be interesting to see what happens in For Good.
Mhm. And of course, in part 2, I don't think this is a surprise because 'cause it's been in the trailers. We'll get to see little glimpses, not a ton. I don't know how much we'll see in the movie, but in the musical, there's already been some foreshadowing from the first half, but I love that at the very beginning of the first movie, the camera is flying us through Oz with the flying monkeys as the music is starting and No One Mourns the Wicked, the song is beginning. We see a glimpse of the yellow brick road leading up to the Emerald City, and you see the 4 little figures of Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion walking toward the Emerald City, and I just like, gets you so excited watching it from the very beginning. But then so for you've seen the trailer for 2, haven't you? Did you see that they're suggesting, and I think this is a really, really neat idea if this is where they go with it, but it looks like they're suggesting they've already said in part 1 that Madame Morrible, her specialty is controlling weather.
Mhm.
Have you seen that they're suggesting she's the one behind the tornado that brings Dorothy's house to Oz?
I don't think I did see that.
They show a twister, and then they show her, like, doing some things at her window with her hand,
Mm,
and the way they cut that scene, I was like, "Are they going to suggest that Madame Morrible is the one who drops the house? Is that what they're saying? That she brings Dorothy to Oz?" That would be a
wow.
really, really interesting take.
Yes. Hmm, who knows?
So, I'm very excited. I hope you enjoy it. I know I will. And, we get to hear some of the best songs, plus the original songs that they're bringing in for this movie. I know
Yeah.
Glinda is getting at least one, and Elphaba's getting at least one.
Yeah. It's exciting, it's good, it's amazing how long The Wizard of Oz has been a part of our, culture,
Mhm.
and that we get to see it continue on, and that it will continue to entertain people for generations to come, and now through Wicked as well, and I would think that people seeing the movie Wicked, they might want to go, "Hmm, let's check out The Wizard of Oz." Go to the local library and check it out, or see if it's somewhere streaming and watch The Wizard of Oz if you haven't seen it before.
Yes, I totally agree. If you have never seen The Wizard of Oz or read it, you should. You should see what the original source material says. And then when you watch The Wizard of Oz, I think especially if you watch the 1939 movie, if you've never seen it before, it just enhances your experience with Wicked. It just makes the experience better
Right.
because you get all the Easter eggs, you get all the nods to the original material, you understand more of the story. So I think it just enriches your experience if you are familiar with The Wizard of Oz
Yeah.
too. But with that, I think that's about all we have to say about part 1. But,
Wow.
we'll get back together and, talk about part 2.
Yay. Yes, join us again next time when we watch books.
Bye.